Santo man kolnyang Mike chol garangawan Jubbe luping yarul pandiri shaj manyel anake ton nyel jilo wone tona dol Adenge kik kega buke gade bo baye anyalinya dia kuwi kepingin
Jemanalie wena changaro ngajedu kega parandi madina manja kubul makur kega bolegen kuai dakyang wagare ding kegela Emmanuel wena bani
Igulu diyor adenge kik kega buke gade bo baye anyalinya dia kuwi kepingin
Jemanalie wena changaro ngajedu kega parandi madina manja kubul makur kega bolegen kuai dakyang wagare ding kegela Emmanuel wena bani
Igulu diyor adenge kik kega buke gade bo baye anyalinya dia kuwi kepingin
No, I'm asking, I say, is this network really clean?
Thank you so much to our viewers, wherever you are tuning in. Welcome to Lagos State Media Beyond Boundaries. And in the studio with us is our usual guest, Edmund Yakani, the CEO of CEPO and one of the prominent activists in our country. And as you are all aware of political developments in our country for the last few days, since last week, during the presidential Republican degrees, which was issued actually on 3rd March 2022, and the response by the political parties to the agreement, the SPLMIO. That is why Edmund Yakani is here today to talk to us and also to brief South Sudanese in regard to the issues of the agreement. The revitalized peace agreement, which was also extended and renamed as a roadmap, which is like a safe title to the revitalized peace agreement. And that's what binding the two or the many political parties involved in the agreement. And for our viewers, Edmund Yakani is one of the signatories to the agreement in Addis Ababa 2018. And he knows every details in that document from chapter 1 up to chapter 6. And he will give us full context of that information. On the same note, Edmund Yakani was on the front line representing activists during roadmap developments and the launching of roadmap. So he will have inside information to give us and also brief us whether the Republicans degree ordered by the president or issued by the president will trigger and violate the agreement all together with the roadmap or not. And if so, then what will be the way forward for the country? Edmund Yakani, we are really glad as Lagos State Media for always responding to our call to come and clarify some of the information to our viewers. Thank you so much. I'll give you a few minutes to give us your opening remark before we dive into our conversation of today. Thank you, Edmund.
Thank you very much. Am I clear and loud? Because I had a
Yes, you are audible. You are audible.
Good. Thank you very much. So yeah, thank you. As you said, I'm Edmund, and thanks for Lex Media for hosting me in this particular subject matter, which is the latest development after we have seen some positive development, but now we are shocked with this, and I will express my opinion whether this is in line with the provision of the agreement, spirit, text, and letter of the agreement or not. But I'd like to say, per the development, Juba is calm now. We don't have any panic in Juba. We are normal. We exercising our lives. As I speak with you now, I'm speaking from Palm Africa Hotel in Juba. I was in a workshop commemorating the International Women's Day, sort of like a preparation towards the celebration of International Women's Day, which is the 8th of March, which is 2 days from today. So today is our first day. So I say Juba is calm, we're normal. But of course, rumors are always there, as you are aware that the society of South Sudan is full of rumors. Otherwise, thank you very much for hosting me for this particular subject matter.
Yeah, thank you so much, Edmund Yakani, for your remark. And to our viewers, we are requesting you, wherever you are watching us now, to share this platform or our live show so that many South Sudanese outside there may get to hear the interview or the discussions with our guest, Edmund Yakani. Thank you so much also our viewers for tuning in. Mr. Edmund Yakani, we always rely heavily on you, and most of South Sudanese always trusted your information on 3 accounts. Number one, you are CEO of CEPO, and CEPO is always directly linked to the communal violence in our country, either from Barikazal, from Equatoria, or from Upper Nile region. And you also have staff on the ground there who always feed you with the information on daily basis. So we trust you on that, and many South Sudanese trust your information on that note. Number two, we trust your information simply because you were one of the signatories to the agreement, rather, of which you have full details or full context of the agreement and what it means and the interpretation of the agreement. In other words, you speaking always in regard to the agreement is another way of disseminating the agreements to the public to own them and to understand what the agreement says. On the same note, you were also representing civil rights group during the roadmap, which means you actually have full contact of what was incorporated in roadmap in order to lead our country until the transitional period end and we go into our election in the year 2024 December to 2025, of which the Pope visit recently on 5th of February gave many South Sudanese hope that this is a confirmation of the kiss which Pope did to our 3 leaders in Rome. And indeed, our leaders really demonstrate that maturity, which you always call the political maturity, on that day. And to the extent, they also arranged the meeting with the IDPs in order to inspire them and give them hope that this country is now on the right trajectory and we are moving systematically until we reach our election. Surprisingly, the rumors had it that the whole government will be changed, of which you also voice out your opinions that there is nothing to do with the government being changed or reduce the size of the government. And there's the Minister of Information, Honorable Mukwege, has also speak out on that topic. And on last week, Friday, we had the Republican decree issued by the president removing the 2 ministerial position personnel, removing the Minister of Defense and Veteran Affairs in the persons of Honorable Angelina Tang and the Minister of Interior, Mahmoud Solomon. And on the same degree, President also swapped the 2 ministries. And on the same side, it did not sit well with the SPLM-IO. They responded in the following morning, condemning it, rejecting it, and also calls president on 2 accounts, called the president to revoke his Republicans a degree and to reinstate back Honorable Angelina Tang to the Ministry of Veteran Affairs, Defense and Veteran Affairs. On that note, Edmund Yakani, we really need you to brief the public and our viewers on really whether these Republican degrees were in line with the roadmap agreement or the revitalized peace agreement, or there were consensus reached between the 2 leaders, the IO leadership and the SPLM leadership, that we need to swap the 2 positions and relieve the 2 ministers. And remember, the 2 positions were bone of contention during the implementation of matrix distribution of position between the government of SPLM-IO, the Ministry of Interior, and the Minister of Defense. Lagos State media was following it closely, and they are aware of such. Thank you so much, Edmund Yakani. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. As you said, I'm loud and clear. I would like to say first the act that was done by His Excellency President removing or relieving Honorable Minister Angelina Ten as an SPLM IO member is not within the prerogative of the president, and it's a violation of the agreement. But removing the Minister of Interior, who is his minister, that's within his prerogative if the party have agreed internally within, because removal of the Honorable Minister of Defense have to be in consultation with her party, which is SPLM-IO, and it's SPLM-IO to propose the replacement or the relief of the minister, and they'll offer an alternative. That's part the spirit and letter of the agreement. And also the decree for swapping the ministries between Minister of Interior and Minister of Defense, between IG and IO, it is not also in line with the spirit of the agreement. So it's unilateral. Let me bring the audience to understand, if we are to make such decisions in accordance with the provisional agreement, what are we supposed to do? For example, if we are to make any amendment to any single alphabet or to any single text or phrase in the revitalized peace agreement, normally there's two ways. One way that we can do that amendment is triggering Article 8.4. And triggering Article 8.4 have to be triggered through the spirit of agreement. What describes the spirit of agreement is two main actions describe the spirit of agreement. One is consultation. After consultation, then consensus have to be reached. If consensus is to be reached, then this one can be made. Then we have seen a similar exercise when the parties realize that the 36 months of the transition period is coming to an end and they cannot meet the requirement of ending the transitional period, they trigger Article 8 for the extension of the lifespan of the revitalized peace agreement for extra more 2 years, or what is called 24 months, that give the birth to the roadmap. If you see, that is one example of amendments that is done within the spirit of the agreement and within the framework of the agreement. That's one particular practice that can be done in terms of amendments. So this presidential decree that was issued, was it an amendment? No, it's not an amendment. Now, what is next? The next thing is the second degree of the president is based on the principle of swapping institution between parties that are parties to the revitalized peace agreement. So if you look at the concept of swapping, have we practiced it before under the lifespan of the agreement and in line with the spirit of agreement? I would like to say yes. We have one particular exercise where swapping is being exercised within the spirit of agreement. What is it? The shift of Jongole State from SPLM-IO to SOA was a clear example of swapping. How does that happen? That first, it brought a consultation among the parties. So the parties have to undergo consultations. After consultations, they reach consensus. After they have reached consensus, then they passed the decision made on swapping Jongole State from IO to SOA and swapping of Upper Nile State to IO. Then that is taken to the president. Then the president issued a decree for the swapping of the leadership and appointing Denai Jok as a SOA member, as a governor of the state. And IO took over America. That's one particular exercise of showing how swapping is supposed to be done in the spirit of the agreement. So the swapping of the ministry between Interior and Defense was not in line with the spirit of the agreement, because IO say is a unilateral decision. So when they say it's unilateral decision, means IO were not consulted. So the principle of consultation between the SPLM and the IO was not conducted, and there were no consensus reached between the IO and the SPLM on the swapping of the ministry. It means consent was not secured for the swapping of the ministry, which by itself is a violation of the agreement. But also the same concept of swapping can be applied in change of ministers. For example, we have seen when OPP have the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, and there are tension among the members of OPP on the way how their member, which is Honorable Peter Mayen, at the Ministry of Humanitarian, they have to undergo consultation internally within the party, and consensus was reached among the party members by the vote of majority that they need to change the minister. Then they propose another name of candidate for the ministry, and that has happened. President have issued a decree. So that is the practice within the spirit and the letter of the agreement, and also in line with Article 8.4 of the agreement. So the decree issued by the president for relieving Honorable Angelina, it is a violation. The one for the Ministry of Interior is within his prerogatives because he's a member of his party. The swapping of the ministries between Ministry of Defense and Interior, between IU and SPLM, is not within the prerogatives of the president to decide it unilaterally, because they are supposed to undergo period of consultations, and after consultation, you have to reach consensus, because consensus means you have secured the consent, and that means now the president have the right to issue that. It means consent is secured and people have agreed upon the swapping of the ministry. So that's what I'd like to say in terms of the practice. So the practice completely is unilateral and it's in violation of the agreement. Yes, we may say there are grievances. This is an assumption that I'd like to display. There may be grievances between His Excellency the President and the Minister of Defense. So if those grievances, how much those grievances are, how terrible those grievances are, still His Excellency need to secure the consensus reached within the SPLM for the replacement of the minister and for the relief of the minister. And that means the SPLM-IO have to do their internal SPLM-IO consultations and reach consensus, and then propose to the president that we as SPLM-IO, we have reached consensus among ourselves and we need Honorable Minister of Defense to be relieved, and we propose so-and-so to sit on the ministry. That's what is supposed to happen in the spirit of the agreement, which it have never happened. So President just issued a decree. As I said, it's a violation. But the relief of the Minister of Interior is within the prerogatives of the president. And the swapping of the ministries is outside the prerogatives of the president, because he is supposed to get consultation and consensus to deliver that. Some people are saying the roadmap of the 24 months have given him that privilege. I would like to say, in terms of the extension of the lifespan of the transitional period, which is to implement the provision of the agreement, there was no any changes to any article or to any provision of the agreement. The agreement remains as it is. What is called as a roadmap, it's only an extension of timeline. But the spirit of the agreement remains as it is, the text of the agreement remains as it is, and the political commitment of the parties in terms of their veto in line with the principle of power sharing in the agreement remain as it is, because they have distributed the ministry among themselves and they blessed that distribution and they've appointed. And that has gone for 3 years without anybody interfering. Now, this latest decree under the roadmap, where people are saying, no, that has given the president a right even to shift people from one ministry to another. No, it's not in line with the text of the agreement. It's not in line with the spirit of the agreement. Now, what is next? Our fear is that if the presidency didn't meet urgently and sort out that, for example, if the presidency can meet urgently, and which they're supposed to meet today, and today they are pushed for Thursday, which is the 9th, they're going to meet, per the information we're getting now in Juba. So if the presidents meet, they need to reach consensus. So if they reach consensus on the decision made under the decree, and if they come out of the meeting and they say, based on the principle of our consultations, we have consulted among ourselves and we have reached consensus that this is the decision, that will be a right practice, but not unilateral practice. So I'd like to say, if there's no consensus reached among the presidents, that means the president, first vice president, then the faith of the revitalized peace agreement will be under question and will be under jeopardy, because these are two central institutions within the implementation of Chapter 2 in terms of unification of security and defense sector. So playing around the institution responsible for unification of security and defense sector, it means actually undermining Chapter 2. And undermining Chapter 2 is the cornerstone and the foundation of the political transition from violence to peace through implementation of the rest of the other chapters of the revitalized peace agreement. So it is a very dangerous alert. It's a very dangerous alarm that may take the country back to violence. And in practice, this is really raising a bit of a disturbance. Our leaders in several events, they have spoken publicly, and it is on record, where they say under their leadership, they will not take the country back to violence. And when Pope came to the country, those are the statements they have made, that they will never take the country back to violence. But we see this act that has happened on Friday is likely to take the country back to violence, or if it's not physical violence right now, people may go quiet, but it will not take long for violence to resume if once there's no consensus reached over this idea of swapping ministries and the relief of the minister of SPLM-IO, Angelina Teng, as Minister of Defense. And remember, the political bureau of SPLM-IO have already reached consensus that they need Honorable Angelina to be appointed, and per their position that up to now she is the Minister of Defense, and they believe that IO still own the Ministry of Defense, so they don't believe on those decrees. So they want to go for dialogue, for cementing and for finalizing the decisions under the decree. So if they go for dialogue, and the dialogue have encouraged consultations, and the consultation have led to consensus, or the consensus is in line with the decrees, then that become a healthy and a practice within the spirit and within the provision of the revitalized agreement. So for me, that is a challenge that is now surfacing. So what are the motivations behind this, it's a really big issue. There are so many rumors on the streets of Juba. There are rumors going on. There were big issues behind the minister in terms of how she administered the ministry. There are allegations that she's involved in some growth, multi-practices within the ministry. A lot of debates going on, no, this in coordination with the Nuer community for such decision to be taken so that they don't have a strength of. There are rumors that, oh, this is simply because elections is closer. That's why she was relieved. Other rumors were saying the recent meeting of our leadership of the country with the Russians say, look here, for us to undermine the arms embargo, you must own the ministry. So these are all rumors. Why these rumors are happening? Because our political leaders are silent. And I think the meeting of His Excellency President and First Vice President may clear those rumors. Because remember, these rumors may remain as true as there's no alternative accurate information provided through a meeting of SPLM and SPLMIO where can alter all these rumors that are going around. So for me, the destiny of the lifespan of the agreement and the success of a political transitional process under the implemented revitalized peace agreement is so much determined by the upcoming meeting of His Excellency President and First Vice President. And my call for that meeting is that let that meeting be peaceful. We don't want to have that meeting like the meeting of 16 July in J1. And up to now, people are panicking because the hangover of J1 is in the mindset of the people that whenever the leaders meet on such disputes, normally they end up in violence or taking the country back to violence. But as I said, this decision have contradicted all the messages that were delivered by our political leaders that they are not ready to return the country back to violence if this decision is made unilaterally without consensus and without consultation among the parties. So this is what I'd like to say as a challenging moment, it's a challenging situation. But of course, as South Sudanese, we need to take responsibility to challenge our leaders to follow the right pathway of transitioning the country from violence to peace. And the best pathway is for His Excellency President and First Vice President to meet, to discuss, to agree, and to come out and inform the public based on what we have seen on Friday. This is our take. We have met and we have agreed, and this is our final decision. Thank you over there.
Thank you so much, Brother Edmund Yakani, for such explanation and briefing in regard to the agreement and what the text in the agreement says in regard to the Republican degrees issued by the president and also the roadmap at once. Thank you for that. On the same note, Edmund, as you put it clearly, many South Sudanese now are worried of what will be the future of roadmap in the near 6 months. Recently, as you put it clearly, it's really contradict their hope and the speeches delivered by the two leaders. But Edmund, as Lagos State Media was aware that the meeting was supposed to take place today morning, but it was extended to Thursday. What do you think about that? Don't you think that the state propaganda machineries will explore this time period in order to run their business between the two leaders, run disinformation, miscommunication, and by the time two leaders meet and converge, then each one of them will come with his mind filled up with the propaganda by the state machineries. Kindly, can you give us your perspective on that note? Because the extension of their meeting up to Thursday, don't you think it will give chance to these propagandist machineries to run their business between the two parties within this period? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Of course, these extra 3 days are more days for hostile propaganda and presentation of hate speech and justification of why such decision is okay. And already we have seen intellectuals who are learned making statements confirming that what has happened is in line with the spirit of the agreement and is legitimate without saying actually it is a violation. Yes, there must be there may be an interest for a such decision to be made, but need to be made in line with the spirit and text of the agreement. And that means consultation and consensus among the parties is very important. That's what to say. So with this timeline of 3 days extra before the meeting of the president, first vice president, there's a high chances that the spoilers of the revitalized peace agreement will take advantage to justify and to bring more evidence for why President should not reverse his decision. And of course, also, these 3 days, there are aspirants who want to go to occupy those ministries. They will come heavily, and they start also lobbying for them to be the candidates for appointment for those ministries. And those means those aspirants become very more influential and strong spoilers of the implementation of the revitalized peace agreement by its spirit. So these 3 days are going to be hard. These 3 days are going to be challenging to the nation. And of course, there will be a lot of rumors coming up. And some of them may exaggerate likelihood of occurrence of violence in these 3 days, which for me, I don't know why they agree for 3 days to prepare, whether they want to go and sit down and justify this, I don't know. And whether there's also a call from IGAD, because I assume institutions like IGAD, like AU might have reached out to the principals and tell them what you're doing is disturbing. But at the same time, as I said, it's also a slap on the face of the Pope. I don't know whether the centers of Christian religious centers in Canterbury, in Vatican, and in Scotland, where they have called the leaders, look here, why are you doing this immediately after we left? And you have promised us that peace is your option, that you're going to deliver under your leadership. So maybe there are those attempts that have been coming in, and that's what made them to extend to Thursday. But I believe that before Thursday, my appeal is the official spokesperson of the government should make a statement at least today in SSBC, or make official statement tomorrow. And also, as a government, they need to give very clear plan how the meeting is going to look like and what's the agenda of the meeting to deter the spoilers from nurturing a lot of rumors, and rumors that may be negative in terms of really maintaining peace and stability among South Sudanese in line of securing implementation of the revitalized peace agreement as enshrined provision. So I think Thursday is very far for His Excellency President and First Vice President to meet, but I think if the government official spokesperson can come out and make a statement and deliver the nature of the meeting that is going to occur, the agenda, how it looks like, that at least can contribute in minimizing and assuring citizens that the leaders, though they have disagreed or they have misunderstanding politically, still the peace and stability and opportunity. This is one. Two, any slight move of security organs right now, it is a potential factor of portraying fear in the citizens. So also the security institutions at the technical level need to take responsibility, like Chief of Staff, the IGP, and the Director of National Security for Internal Affairs. They may need to assure the nation that how much the politicians have disagreed, the country is not returning back to violence, because anybody can take advantage of the 3 days and create any particular commotions that may involve security and defense members, and that might cause panic among the citizens, and that may give chance for the spoilers of peace to take advantage. So for me, the urgency, the quicker the president's meet could have better, but already we are aware that they have said they have pushed it for Thursday. But between now and Thursday, there's a need to have official statement and official description of how the meeting is going to be, so that we deter rumor mongers from driving the agenda. And of course, I said, aspirants are there, they're going to be. So it's very important for the leadership of the country to address the nation before Thursday in order to allow the situation to remain calm and to allow citizens not to panic that the push of the meeting of the president and first vice president to Thursday may offer an opportunity of a clash among the forces. So that is my take. That is my position. Thank you over there.
Thank you, Edmund. Thank you for that. Mr. Edmund, there are two sides here that many citizens are still eager for the two leaders to meet and also to hear what they will agree upon. One side is, if the president failed to accept the IO demand of reinstating the ministry back to them and reinstating Angelina attained to the position, then what will happen? Another side of the story is, if the president comply with the SPLMIO demand, then what will be the consequences on the side of these war mongers and rumors mongers, as you put it before? So kindly, can you dissect the two? Because if they meet on Thursday, and as you put it clearly, the time now is to strategize on two sides. Each one of them will be groomed by his group within this period in order to give him his strategies on how to debate and how to present his point. Both sides. What will be the outcome if the presidency or the president fail to agree the SPLMIO demand? then what will happen? What will be the fate of the road map and revitalized peace agreement altogether? Thank you.
Thank you very much. First, Thursday's meeting is not going to be a simple meeting because it's going to be a meeting based on the principle of negotiation and bargaining in terms of really winning a positive decision that may be towards the decree of the president. For instance, already we have seen what you call a preconditioned position or a radical position or a position of rigidity. In the political bureau communication of the SPLMIO, they have said one of the decisions is that president have to reverse his decree and appoint Honorable Angelina Teng as a Minister of Defense that represent their party as SPLMIO. And also we have had today, this morning, the first Deputy Speaker of the Parliament, who is a Deputy Chair of the SPLMIO party, Right Honorable Nathaniel Oyet, saying, per now, as SPLMIO is concerned, they still consider a Minister of Defense is a Minister of the SPLMIO. At the same time, Honorable Angelina Teng is a Minister of Defense. They don't consider that she's out. So these are the position of the SPLMIO. And we have already seen some communication. And you know, in South Sudan, you don't have secrets from the corridors of power. We're already saying that there's no way that the government is going to give in to reinstate Honorable Angelina Teng as a Minister of Defense. And we have seen also in some few media outlets, the SPLM Secretary General, Paul Lam, confirming that the SPLM is not ready to allow, or the president is not ready as a chair of the SPLM to bring Angelina back as a Minister of Defense. And that means, whether that means also they are not ready to avoid the swapping of the ministry, they will take over, SPLM will take over the Minister of Defense. If that's the position, that's a radical position. So this tells you clearly the mood or the atmosphere, the way the meeting is going to be held. It means it's going to be an atmosphere of negotiation between the president and his first vice president. That's one thing. What are the possible scenarios? If there's a scenario of first vice president giving in towards the Minister of Defense, what does that mean? That means they will not allow you to go as clean as like that. They will give conditions to regain certain influence. So there's a likelihood they may say, okay, now if what's come to us, case scenario, take the Minister of Defense, but give us the Chief of Staff position. So swap. We must take ownership of the Chief of Position staff. But I think this is a last resort of a weakness of the SPLMIO if they're going to go for bargaining, that they're going to bargain, or they may also offer another very big demand in line of giving in the position of the minister. But of course, their primary position is that they will never allow, in terms of giving in Honorable Angelina to be replaced in the Ministry of Defense. For them, is that is the position. As we mentioned in the beginning, it was a contested two ministries during the selection of ministries, whether one party can take both interior and defense at the same time. There was been contested, and that's why they're able to do swapping of IO take defense and then SPLM take interior. So that is the scenario from the side of the SPLM-IO, is that if they're to give as a last resort sign of compromise for peace, they may give a condition that the Chief of Staff must come to them. Because what is it? The both parties are trying to calculate political game of power balance in any of the institutions that they may find themselves in, whether the minister is from it. That's why you can see the way how undersecretary versus ministers, and how in terms of the security institutions, ministers versus certain positions, the security and defense institutions are allocated simply to create a balance of power. That's the last resort. But I feel IO is going to be rigid, that they don't give in, because that shows a point of weakness, that they have been defeated. Now, if the president is sticking that they won't take the Ministry of Defense and Veteran Affairs, they may offer IO that take Ministry of Interior as it was swapped. Then that means will Angelina be allowed by the IG to be the Minister of Interior? So if there's a problem between the president and Honorable Angelina when she was a Minister of Defense, then that's the likelihood the president will say, okay, you may take Minister of Interior if they give in, but we don't want Angelina as a minister there. We may need another person. That also creates another bargaining and another lobby within the SPLM-IO parties in terms of who exactly will be their candidate. But also the same thing will be repeated, even if IO is to go back to the Ministry of Defense and Veteran Affairs. There may be a question, will President allow Angelina to remain the minister or somebody else? That's another layer of bargaining. So the layers of bargaining negotiation on the Thursday's meeting are too many, at least three that I've mentioned. One is, really, will they give in for the ministry? Second, if they give in for the ministry, will the candidature of Angelina be accepted, whether for defense if they're to retain it, or for interior if they're to go for it? and whether they will accept to only lose defense and leave the chief of staff, or will they claim the chief of staff, and will the government give in the seat of the chief of staff to be taken? Because also remember, if IO comes to Ministry of Interior, that means also the position of the IGP is under question. So if we're to look into the side of the question where you have mentioned implications, the swapping of the ministries between defense and interior, between IO and IG, have implication on the technical representation of the parties in the implementation of Chapter 2 of the agreement. That means the seat of the chief of staff is going to be affected, the seat of the IGP is going to be affected, maybe also even may extend itself to national security. So it means the technical side of the security and defense institutions that are tasked to deliver the unification will be affected with this particular decision of swapping the ministries and appointing new ministers. And that means also the function of the unified command may be subject for question, how the distribution of roles in the unified command is going to be. So it's going to be a very complicated implications in terms of negotiation on Thursday and reaching consensus in terms of balance of power within defense and security sector between SPLM and SPLM-IO in terms of nurturing trust and confidence among them to deliver Chapter 2 of the Revitalized Peace Agreement. And remember, Chapter 2 is a determiner of the implementation of the rest of the chapters, being constitution, being elections, being transitional justice, being the economical benefit that are enshrined in Chapter 4 and Chapter 3. All those ones are so much determined by how much have we built consensus and we have regained trust and confidence in implementing Chapter 2 of the agreement. So that's going to be the implications that I'd like to mention in terms of this decision that was being made. But also, if they agree to agree on swapping of the ministries and replacement of positions, this is still contribute highly in increasing deficit in confidence and trust. And this tells you very clear, if we to go for elections, what the environment of the elections will look as security and defense is concerned. It means territorial control of electoral processes is going to merge up, and that means we are not going to have free and fair election once the security and defense sector is not unified and is not having consensus and doesn't have a trust and confidence among themselves on the way how they're coming as a unified force from different political parties. That is going to have a direct impact on the elections, and that is going to jeopardize the principle of free and fair elections. And we may have actually crisis during the elections if this level of deficit in trust and confidence is to continue by this latest development that we have seen. So this latest development is contradictory to so many things. It's contradictory to visit of the Pope, is contradictory to the speeches of our president, is contradictory to their meetings with the IDPs, the way they communicate to the IDPs, is even contradictory to the consensus they reach on scrapping off powers within the national security, not to arrest with warrant and warrant of arrest, but also is contradictory to other processes like constitution, like elections, because all those processes requires provision of security and protection if we're going to go for it. So for me, that is the implication of this particular latest development on the implementation of the roadmap. And also at the same time is a big implication on the sector of security and defense between the representative of SPLM-IO and IG. And of course, the critical part of it is that the two parties, SPLM, which have its military wing, which is by then called SPLA, later on it was reformed to South Sudan People's Defense Force, and then SPLM-IO, which have its army, SPLA-IO, which are in opposition. These are the two strong giant players in the security and defense transformation of the country under the implementation of Chapter 2. Of course, we have SOA, but SOA is not so giant in terms of representation, in terms of influence, like the two, the SSPDF and the SPLM-IO in opposition. But also, if they don't discuss it well, one party may take advantage of avoiding the concept of unification of forces, and they may introduce or they may switch the whole process from unification to reintegration. And once they switch to reintegration, new bond revolutions may come up because people say, no, the principle of unification is being undermined. We're now engaging on reintegration. And remember the concept of the Khartoum Peace Agreement, which was signed between the Agwelek and the Kitugwang, which embraced a direct reintegration, didn't work. So is reintegration going to work? And remember, people have been saying some few days, Olonyi is going to come to Juba, and Olonyi said, no, I'm not going to go to Juba because the leadership in Juba in terms of security and defense is not trustworthy. So, that is an undermining of reintegration. What does it mean? My worry is that this may allow pockets of violence will continue in the country if our leaders didn't take a decision under wisdom. And if they don't take also a decision in ensuring that peace and stability in the country is more higher than their personal or group or clique's interest. Because if they see all this debate from their group or clique interest, and they don't look from the big picture of the image of stability of the country and peace for the city of the country, they will make wrong decisions that may return the country back to violence, which contradicts their statement that they have made in several events. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Edmund Yakani, for dissecting and also giving us the review on how, on the preview actually, on what will their Thursday meeting will look like, and what will be their two bargaining power on the two sides of the two sides of the government, the SPLM-IO and the SPLM. Yeah, Mr. Edmund, you said clearly if the president or the SPLM insisted on their decision, and SPLM-IO might, as the last option for the sake of peace, demand the chief of defense to be swapped together with the minister of defense instead of interior. If that happened, assuming president insists on his decision and also rejects the SPLM-IO demands, or maybe giving another options of two ministries, either Ministry of Foreign Affairs or Ministry of, or actually Chief of Defense, do you believe that the possibility of IO pulling out from the agreement will be there or not? Thank you.
My feeling is that as a bargaining strategy, in terms of if they are no consensus reached on Thursday meeting, the bargaining strategy at the hands of the IO are two. One bargaining strategy is not pulling. I remember already His Excellency First Vice President have made the statement that he is still committed to the peace agreement. So that means the language of pulling may be, yes, of course, that may be there, but they may use the words like, we are suspending our participation in the government until we reach consensus. So there's a high chance that they may use the concept of suspension as a bargaining power. Remember, March last year, at the same almost timeline, they were pulling out of IO from the security mechanism. They suspend. They use the word we suspend, which is at the same time also pulling out of that, which I do agree with you. So that is one bargaining power they may have at hand that we may see from IO saying, we are suspending our participation from the revitalized government and we will not turn out to our ministries, to our various political seats as MPs. And they have used this, remember, in the parliament too, when it comes to the Political Parties Act. So that's one strength that they have at hand politically, because military don't have the strength of going back waging war, but they will use those political tactics to buy influence and to make sure that they regain their interest that they want. And also that particular strategy may attract intervention from an institution like IGAD, and may attract Friends of South Sudan to come in. It may attract attention of the religious leaders to come in and say, no, you must reach. So it may generate a pressure, an external pressure for some consensus to be reached. That's one thing that they may reach if they fail to reach a bargaining as one, if they fail to reach consensus on the way forward on Thursday, that may be their bargaining power. So there's a high chances that we may see them using the word, we are suspending our participation, but still we're committed to the revitalized peace agreement. And the mistake will be if IG is to react and posting threats, personal threats to the security of these, then that is the worst scenario, which we don't want to see coming from IG threatening them if they use the word suspension of the government. But that is the power they will use. But I'm quite sure between now and Thursday, they may reach out to the grantors, they may reach out to IGAD to come in prior Thursday to assert some influence for consensus to be reached. And I'm quite sure as we speak per now, there's a continuous communication between IG and IGAD and the grantors, and also communication between SPLM-IO and IGAD and the grantors and some Friends of South Sudan, maybe at the level of UN, like the Office of the UN Secretary General. I'm quite sure they are following and they might be concerned, they might be engaged either directly from the Secretary General or through the head of the UNMISS mission in South Sudan. That's the SRG of United Nations Mission, Peacekeeping Mission in South Sudan. He might have been engaged in pursuing that. So for me, that is the bargaining ground. While for the IG, because they are the one who triggered and the interest is in their side, they'll be pushing back. They may use this language of no way out. No way, no way. We have no any other option. we can't give in. What we need is that we need the means of defense. But to buy the means of defense, they may open a window of alternatives. So that is an IG strength of bargaining, is that we will take defense, but we'll negotiate with you if we think you need an alternative. So that's an IG bargaining power, is that since they need the means of defense, they say, we'll give you alternative. What is that alternative? It depends also on the bargaining of how IO is and how much does that IO look at the alternative as a benefit. So if the game is a game of repositioning influence, then the concept of take and give may be applied during the meeting time, in sense that I also may need to use this opportunity to buy more options. But what I feel is that I will feel embarrassed and they feel like they're weak. They may feel like they have been undermined if they lose the Minister of Defense. And that's why they were going to be so rigid during the meeting in terms of the negotiation between President and first Vice President. And I wish a third party should be involved. And I wish that IGAD and especially the Office of the Special Envoy should be on the ground on Thursday. And of course, as civil society, we'll advocate from now and until Wednesday to make sure that at least IGAD have presence on the ground and attending the meeting. And of course, I'll use this platform to urge that at least we wish the two grantors, that means Uganda, Sudan, and remember, Sudan also is the chair of IGAD, and IGAD Special Envoy and IGAD Executive Secretary, at least should have a representation during that meeting. And also, even I'll extend as further, is calling for AU Peace and Security Council, because they left Juba less than a month this decision was taken. So AU Peace and Security Council, ad hoc committee, which they call it AUC5, should have presence in that meeting. And this mainly the representation of South Africa, Rwanda, Nigeria, Chad, Algeria. They must come to the ground and they must join at least this meeting and make sure that they play a role of minimizing the chances of return back to violence. So for me, that's the rigidity. But I don't see it is going to be an easy meeting. Why is it not an easy meeting? Because there's a personal grievances associated with these decisions. And these personal grievances is linked with the high level of deficit in trust and confidence among the parties. So it's going to be a harder one, and it's going to be between the two ends. Is a tale of two cities meeting. I know if you read the book of Tale of Two Cities, it's going to be a Tale of Two Cities meeting, because we either go positive or we go negative. And of course, we wish to go positive. And for us to go positive, there's a need to start sending messages and start advocating for what we think is a positive, because of course, we're going to be rigid. And as I say, this reminds us of July 2016 incident, when there was a debate on establishment of cantonment. Remember, we go to violence because only to reach consensus on establishment of cantonment, the moods in the room changes, quoting all the past to refer back to 2013 between the disagreement among the SPLM. We are worried that also this particular meeting, it may make reference to the previous, and already we have started getting messages to the reference to the previous. For instance, like what? Today we are with the first Right Honorable Speaker of the Parliament, who is the Deputy Chair of the SPLM-IU, on a talk show. And he was able to level other violations that he feels they have given in and they have compromised, and they feel still that have given the IG a power to violate. Like what? Appointment of Deputy Minister of Interior is supposed to be an SPLM, IO, a female from Warap. It was rejected by the President. Dismissal of the Speaker of Jongole State, which was not replaced up to now. They feel that's another issue. But then before Olony could defect the appointment of Olony, it was a big issue. So now comes with the relief of Angelina Tang from the SPLM, and this is an influential player of the SPLM IO. So they already start quoting the past as a backup of their arguments. And I think it's going to be a rigid meeting. It's not going to be an easy meeting. It's not going to be a soft meeting. But we hope that the leaders will take a political stand with wisdom, in the sense that if they want to deliver their names to the books of good history, this is such meetings determined, because remember, they have already scored bad names with regard to the negotiation of 16 July, when they negotiated the issue of cantonment areas. So do they want to repeat the same history? And people say history never repeats itself. But I'm quite sure in South Sudan, history is repeating itself. So they should not allow history to repeat itself in a negative way. The best is that let them surprise the public by reach consensus. And once they reach consensus, whatever the outcome consensus is none of our business. Our business is always any decision must be in agreement in terms of consultation and consensus. We go with it like the way they did with the roadmap. But of course, these have huge implications on political transition. Actually, I will tell you, they have scored a high marks of losing citizen trust and confidence that they're going to work together and they're going to deliver the country from violence to peace. they have really scored. All the gains they have scored in the past, they have destroyed with this decision. And it's going to be very, very problematic. Citizens are waiting for that meeting. And that meeting will determine the level of citizens' trust and confidence for them to deliver the country away out of violence to peace. And actually, even some people are already start thinking about, no, I need to leave before Thursday because maybe it's a repetition of another J1. But this is a really, really demonstration of lack of political maturity. And this is really a clear action that our politicians always like to have a self-name and shame for go through their decisions. So I think they still have the opportunity. I feel still they have the opportunity to make a credible decision, a remarkable decision that will make the country smile again and see that the political leaders are putting the country to the pathway of transitioning from violence to peace in a peaceful manner. So the way how the meeting will be conducted, it determines the public trust and confidence on whether they will work together to deliver the country out of violence to peace through implementing the roadmap, which we term it sometimes the pending task of the revitalized agreement within the period of extended 24 months. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Edmund Yakani, for giving us your perspective in regard to that question on what will be the possible options on the table of SPLM-IO if the president insists on his decision. Before we end our show of today, Mr. Edmund Yakani, there is one thing that you also need to weigh in. Previously, President used to relieve people on the same date or the same day and appoint the replacement on the same time. At the recent past, President is now learning another strategy of relieving and leaving position vacant for a certain period of time to give money spenders time to spend their money on lobby on whom to be appointed and whom not to be appointed. Kindly, what is the idea behind that? Not only on this recent degree, it happened on some degrees back, and these degrees back were president bureaucracy on whom to appoint and whom to relieve. But for the recent degrees, it can also give justification that president gave these periods in order to console his counterpart, SPLM-IO. But what is the strategy behind of the president decision always leaving vacant position for a certain period of time? Kindly give us your wisdom on that, and then we will give us your last remark before we end our show of today. And before that also, I will ask my good brother, who is the president of Lagos State Media, Isaac Tieng Paul, to give us, if there are some questions on the comment section that you may ought to answer before we end our show of this time. Thank you, Edmund Yakani.
Thank you very much. First, if you see this decree of relieving the Minister of Interior and the Minister of Defense, the relief of both ministers is a secondary objective of the decree. The primary objective of the decree is a swapping of the ministry, because you cannot swap ministries with active ministers. You need to swap ministries with relief ministers. So the relief of the ministers is a secondary side of the interest. The primary interest is swapping of the ministries. That's why, because that swapping of ministries have created tension already. So to confirm the swapping, that's why the element of negotiation was embraced, what is called the meeting of the president and the first vice president. That's one thing. At the same time also, when president intervened to relieve a minister of a party that does not belong to him, normally have to give a growth period of the party internally have to negotiate. For example, see the relief of the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, who is from OPP, and OPP is not really in any position. So the time have to be given for OPP to bring names of candidates to be appointed. And the same thing apply to the Speaker of Jongole State Legislative Assembly, as up to now is vacant. So the Minister of Interior, President cannot appoint somebody immediately because he need to reach consensus on swapping of the ministry. And after swapping of the ministries, if the reach consensus, can appoint a minister to that. But it's supposed to be an immediate relief of minister through the spirit of the agreement. They would have been relieved immediately and appointed like other reliefs that were been done or other appointments that were been done in the past. But of course, I say these days, what is it? I think the idea of keeping a vacant long as long as not in line with the spirit of the agreement, is problematic for the decrees of the president. And that have registered scores of violations of the agreement in terms of use of presidential decree in implementing the agreement spirit. So that's for me the challenge. But of course, this particular one of the swapping of the ministries is going to raise sharp appetite for those who are interested to become a candidate. There's a sharp appetite within IO, the Ministry of Defense. There may be sharp appetite within IO for the Ministry of Interior, and there may be a lot of debates going on who is who. So every candidate who has a sharp appetite for ministerial position in both camps, SPLM and SPLM-IO, may be lobbying now. And I don't think there's really an easy candidate, the SPLM-IO, that is going to lobby for the Ministry of Interior, because he'll be seen as a spoiler, as a collaborator of SPLM in undermining the influence of SPLM-IO in the Ministry of Defense. But of course, within IG, there'll be huge sharp appetite, because if they realize that the president is going to be rigid and committed and making sure no compromise of back the Ministry of Defense to IO, then there'll be a lot of sharp appetite within SSPDF for the position of the Minister of Defense and Veteran Affairs. So that is what I think is the game. But of course, relieving a political figure and leaving a vacant that position is really terrible. That is going to generate a lot of hostile propaganda, hate speech, and misinformation, disinformation, because the campaigners are going to use those tools to justify their relevance for those institutions and to make sure that nobody is appointed. And that is going to be a campaign where one will campaign against the other by using this principle of hostile propaganda and disinformation, misinformation, and a lot of bargaining here and there. I'm the candidate, this is not the candidate. And it's going to generate a lot of tensions as we speak per now. So I think for me, that's the implications of living. Where the tactics comes from, I think maybe it's a new school of thought in terms of knowing, but also I think that gives president to know who is an aspirant, who is campaigning for what. And that also exposes some politicians to vulnerability who are so much interested in power, because now they'll be known that, oh, okay, you're among those who are having a sharp appetite for any vacancy that may come or any vacancy that may surface in front of us as a party. So it means somehow also even my seat, I'll be questioning you. So there'll be a lot of these particular issues that may happen as these vacancies remain without being appointing anybody. And in political science, 3 days is too much. People will be really running upside down. Of course, as we speak now, some people are spending money for beers, for sodas, for chicken, for milk, as a lobby. Some people are already having meetings at their homes. They start calling others and asma, I'm the candidate. Chicken yao bejai, yao kreta sodas bejai, yata beer bejai. Some people are now lobbying, and already, if you're not careful, letters have been written already in justifying why I'm the candidate for a particular seat. So for me, 3 days, lobby is going to be there. Private sector is going to gain capital from those who are spending in order to access the power, which is a healthy to our private sector, because some of those are looted money that have been kept for long, but at least President have created an opportunity for the private sector to get. But of course, this opportunity have a disaster in terms of peace and stability that we wish to have in the country. Over there to you.
Yeah, thank you, Edmund. Let's move back to the president of Lagos State Media, Brother Isaac Tiang Paul. If there are some questions on the comment section, you will let us know, and then we will give in our remarks before we end the show. Thank you, Isaac.
Yeah, thank you so much, Makur, Bajok Makur, and thank you, Edmund Yakani. I have 2 questions here in the comment section, and also I have one person from Clubhouse. We'll start with the Clubhouse, Brother Tilo. I will bring him up to ask his question. Attilo, unmute yourself, and then you ask your question.
Yes, thank you. There's an echo. I don't know. Is it my setting or you? Thank you, brother. Yeah, there's an echo. I don't know what is that coming from.
Are you getting him? I'm not getting him.
Isaac, can you address the echoes issue before you give Banyatilo a chance? The echo is in the studio, not on his side.
Okay, I will put on my side. Go ahead. Go ahead, Philip.
Or can someone receive his question, then communicate it, relay to me?
Yeah, it's good. Go ahead, Philip.
Oh, yeah, sure. Thank you, legal. Lagos State Media, and your viewers, and the guest speaker, Ustaz.
Edmund, can you hear him now?
Is that clear?
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, he is clear, but let him just be audible enough. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Edmund, my question to you, I was listening when you started your remarks, and you started by mentioning violation of the peace agreements, the removal of the defense of the defense minister in the Republic of South Sudan, and you retained the wife of Victoria Machar. I just want to recall these statements.
I'm not getting him. Is he speaking or is he relating his question to someone, then later on be communicated to me?
He is actually speaking, but we will help you to recover his questions. Go on, Attila.
What is that, please?
Yeah, go ahead, Philip.
Yeah, in 2013, Brother Edmund, President Salva Kiir insists that the problem in South Sudan, especially on 2013, wasn't ethnically based, but the international community insists that it was ethnically based. Later on, they were convinced that the problem started actually within the ruling party. Now, coming to what we call an agreement, the R-ARCSS, according to my view, the R-ARCSS is not an agreement between the Riek Machar camps and the President Salva Kiir camps or the Republic of South Sudan. I think it was headed by the President Salva Kiir. It was the agreement that was put together and composed by the regions and the international community in this case, and the African Union, the IGAD, to resolve the conflict in South Sudan. I don't know why people always shy away of mentioning that Riek Machar and President Salva Kiir were forced to sign the document that's called an agreement, because I never witnessed where Victoria Machar and President Salva Kiir came to an agreement. They are convinced this is how we are going to resolve the conflict in South Sudan. It never happened. If it happened, can you please walk me through that agreement between Riek Machar and President Salva Kiir? Because what I remember in 2018 in Ethiopia is it was an observation, 12 points from President Salva Kiir. Paganamon went and signed, Victoria went and signed, and President Salva Kiir were insisting this will regenerate the war or conflict in our country. You see, people didn't listen. And we know what happened after that. The dogfight in 2016. You see? So now, my question is this, Brother Ustaz Edmund Yakani. I want you to walk me through the revised peace agreement per se, where, in what chapter, in what provision or article, where the violations was mentioned. That's one. And what article will prevent the head of the state from removing or denying someone to be appointed as the head or minister or the governor of the state in case of Johnson Bullock, as an example. That's one. Sub question is this. When Soha, part of the agreement, went as far to deadlock who supposed to represent them, they went with 3 names to the president to use discretion. To use his discretion. Something that is not mentioned within the peace agreement. But General Salva Kiir expressed that to Big Hussein Abdel Badi. Out of the 3, why do we have to go to the president if he's not head of the state? Finally, I want you to agree with me, or not, Ustaz Edmund, that the revised peace agreement was meant to be incorporated to South Sudan's constitution. It wasn't a constitution how to run the country. It was meant to be incorporated to the constitution, and that constitution gave the president the function and duties of removing and appointing some ambassadors and ministers, all this. So why the case of ministers of defense is special? You see, Ustaz Edmund, I will stop with that, Ustaz Merit. And thank you, Ustaz Truly Africa from the Facebook. I will stop here, and I hope I'm very clear. If you want me to explain more, I will be more than happy to do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I hear microphone back to you. I hear microphone.
Yeah, go ahead, Edmund.
I may need to be getting relay of the questions because I missed with the network. I missed some parts of his question. If somebody can sum for me up his question so that I provide him the answer. I get part of it, but I don't want to misrepresent his question. I want really a summary of his question so that I can provide him the answer.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you so much, Edmund Yakani, and thank you so much, Banja Tilo, for also always coming actually we have issues to do with the South Sudan political discussions. You are always at the front line. We really appreciate you for that. Keep it up, and that is the way to go. And I really appreciate South Sudanese on Clubhouse. You are doing great things, not only to yourself, but also you are also learning on the things that are happening on our country. In fact, you are more informed on the political issues in our country than those who don't even join the discussion. Thank you for that. Edmund, are you there?
Light, I need the light.
Yeah, I think Edmund
is needing
got
a light
issues with the connectivity. All right, he might come back. And before that, if there is anyone there in Clubhouse who want to add something onto the questions of Banja Tilo, then I think, Isaac, you can give that person a chance while we are waiting for Edmund to come back so that I can brief him on the questions asked by the Attilo.
No, we were having only one person who was only Attilo who is asking a question. And in the comment section here, I have two questions, and one question Attilo raised it from Abiel Kon.
Yes, you can display those questions so that I can note them down, and once he returns, then he will just go straight to them.
Yeah, sorry, the light went off. I couldn't see me, and I will make a disclaimer. Can you just help me with the summary of the question? Is it the one on the screen which was raised?
Okay, thank you, Edmund, for coming back. Yeah, the one on the screen, you will answer it. And I just want to recap the questions asked by Attilo. Once Attilo was asking you to walk him through the 2015 agreement, which was imposed on President Kiir and the grantors, actually not the grantors, rather, and the parties to the agreement, which did not yield fruits which South Sudanese desired in 2016. That agreement was not onto the line, or was not in the line actually with the will of South Sudanese, and that's why we had dogfight J1 2016. On the same note, Attilo was asking, can you clearly tell us on which chapter or clause does violations of the agreement been mentioned in revitalized peace agreement 2018? And sub question on that, he was asking which clause said that president should not actually remove and appoint someone that he deemed fit to hold the position or not to hold the position. And he went as far as giving examples of Johnson Olony and also the Speaker of Jonglei, Deputy Speaker of Jonglei State, that the agreement was meant to be incorporated into the Constitution of South Sudan 2011 as amended. And if that is the case, then the Constitution gave the President duties and obligation to remove and to appoint. So I think those were the few questions Attilo asked, and you really need clarification from you on those topics. Thank you. After that, the two questions will be displayed on board on the screen, and then you will go straight, you answer them respectively. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks to our brother for raising those questions. And I really respect his opinion. He's setting up his opinion in terms of the questions. Yeah. I think in terms of the agreement, you know, this concept that the agreement of 2015 was imposed on our leaders is really a political sentiment. I was part of it. I was involved in that particular processes. We reached that agreement through dialogues, through like exactly as a revitalized, exactly as a roadmap. And if you look at the content of the agreement from 2015 until now to the roadmap, there's no big change. There's no really big change in terms of the content. The content remains as it is. The changes are very small. For those of us who have been following the agreement, really the changes are very, very, very small. It's to do with things like, for example, in 2015, talk about the hybrid court. For an MOU here, we're talking about a guideline, which means the same thing. And in 2016, what went wrong was the establishment of cantonment sites in the region of Equatoria for SPLM-IO, since they have their forces. And there was insist that SPLM-IO can establish cantonment sites in Equatoria. That's what brought a problem in 2016, and that's why we went for violence. And in 2016, we went back and actually engaged on the same agreement. What only happened is that it has been revitalized. What is revitalized is few clauses who have been changed, and the concept of having two commanders in chief was removed. Now we have one, or having two armies in general, actually. Having two armies for a certain period of time was removed, and it's still, as we speak by now, we have still two armies under the concept of the unification. So there's no big change in terms of the content and text and the spirit of the agreement of 2015 until now. That's one thing that I'd like to make it very clear. In terms of, because some of the parts of the question I couldn't get clear with the internet, but in terms of clauses or articles that are in the agreement that deny precedent not to remove a party candidate, it is the spirit of the agreement. The spirit of the agreement, if you read it very clear, in chapter 1, you can read from article 1.1.1, which talk about the establishment of the government. You read until the end of the principle of power sharing under the articles, you'll find that the concept of the government is a government of national unity. And the principle of government of national unity is that they operate the principle of coalition. And the principle of coalition, if you want to affect the other side partner of yours in the coalition government, the principle of the engagement were two. First, you enter to consultation. Secondly, you reach consensus. And this is what is called the spirit of the agreement. And this is already incorporated into the Constitution. It means no single party can take advantage of its position to decide in replacing other party. If you are discontented with any minister of any other party, you recommend to the particular party leader to replace that particular minister because you are discontented with that. Like what happened with the appointment of Olonge, when the president is discontented to IO, I cannot go for it because I'm discontented with this personality. So then you give them a chance to look for alternative internal, and which IO have done it. I'm not supporting IO, but they have done that one. And it's the same thing when come to IO in personality of IGs. If they may contest, they may challenge, what they have to do is that IO have no any prerogatives to tell IG or tell SPLM that we don't want this member of yours. The only thing SPLM IO have to do is to go to consultation with the SPLM, and through the consultation with the SPLM IO and the SPLM, they can reach decision. So that is the spirit of the agreement, that anything you have to do through consultation and consensus building. For example, if president realizes there's one minister who is not performing, for instance, like let's use the latest, the minister of humanitarian. The minister of humanitarian, president didn't decide to relieve the minister on his own. What he waited is that he got the recommendation of the OPP that they are discontented with their own member who is a minister. And based on that, he relieved the minister, but also he gave the OPP time to do the internal consultations to bring candidates for the seat. And until they took period of time like a month plus to do their own internal consultation, and they reach consensus, and the president appointed. That is the spirit of the agreement, and that is applied uniformly to any party. But the principle of the latest development is not really relief of Angelina as a Minister of Defense or the relief of the Minister of Interior. It's the swapping. The swapping, I repeat myself, the swapping of the ministry is a primary objective, but you cannot swap ministries with active ministers. First, you need to relieve the ministers, then you swap the ministry. So it means the whole debate, the whole ultimate goal is a swapping of the ministry between Interior and Defense. Later on, then they come and appoint the candidates later. Yes, there must be a position of discontented, and political is a prerogative of the president. When discontented with another leader, he tell the party, your member who sit in this particular ministry, I don't want because I'm discontented with this candidate. Then that party can change. That's within the prerogative of the president, that it is within the implementation of the revitalized agreement or under the principle of the government of national unity. That is part of my explanation, like for example, the Jongole one. And of course, I also have their own internal issues that is challenging them. They have displayed themselves. The question is, when the speaker of Jongole state was relieved at the state level, why there's no political bureau meeting that come with the communique like the relief of the Minister of Defense? And that may be the question that's asking, how special is the Minister of Defense that the political bureau was able to sit and present a position after the relief of the Minister of Defense, and while the Speaker of Jongole State was relieved and does not any political bureau position, but we have had statements of saying, no, we don't agree with the way how it is. And we have seen other political parties relieving their ministers and their MPs, and there's no any position that comes out from those political parties. So this some of the dualism that is happening, or what is called by Arabic is diwajia, which is happening among the practice of the presidency in terms of replacement of political figures from different political parties. But in summary, my answer to my brother's question is that if we want to implement the agreement has a spirit. The spirit is that use consultation, reach consensus, then enforce. That's the principle. So I feel, yes, President may be discontented with personality of Angelina, or he may see that, no, time has come, let us swap the ministries. And I wish they could have done actual swapping of the ministry during the negotiation of the roadmap. When they negotiated the roadmap of the extension, they could have swapped the ministry, because they didn't give any opinion on swapping of the ministry, whether being SPLM-IU or being the IG or other political parties. There's no interest by then, because everybody's retaining their positions. So I wish they could have done that. Or they trigger Article 8.4 for swapping of ministries by saying, look here, can we change? And you can swap beyond one ministry. You can swap several ministries. Maybe other political parties also need a swapping of ministries. Could have been a uniform principle. Through consultation and consensus, you can go. But all in all, my answer to my brother is that we need peace and stability in our country. And the two principles have the primary responsibility. They are South Sudanese. And all over the world, brothers can disagree. But normally they will value an overall peace and stability. And I think the biggest interest we have is that we need to see South Sudan as a peaceful and a stable country, regardless of our political differences, our political ideology, and our political colors. Because peace and stability, it is the benefit for the massive population of the country. But the power may be the benefit of the few who are wrangling over the power. So wrangling over power should not subject the country to whole suffering because 2 or 3 people or 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 people are rivaling over a power of the state. That rivalry should weigh that it embraces peace and stability for the overall best interests of the citizen of the country. That will be my answer. I hope I've answered him fully in terms of this. And also I'm ready, if you can want to follow up with the other further calls, you can get my contacts from you. We can continue interacting and I can continue offering answers. The only thing that, of course, internet is challenging me in terms of really getting his questions clearly. But what I'd like to say is that swapping can be exercised. As I repeat myself, when I start, I say swapping was done on the ownership of state. For example, the case of Jongole, the case of Upper Nile. But because it's done within the spirit of the agreement, it is very simple and it was managed and it was sorted out. I wish the same swapping would have been used on swapping of the Ministry of Interior and Defense, so that we don't see somebody saying it's a unilateral decision. So that is what I would like to say in terms of the agreement. And specifically, one thing that I'd like to say is that reference to 2015, reference to the revitalized agreement is no longer really a big issue that we need to refer to. We need to refer to the roadmap, which it is our own making. And I remember I was part and parcel of the key speakers in adapting the endorsement of the roadmap. And all the leaders say now, this is ours. And that's why that time I questioned them. What a miracle are you going to perform that you failed to perform in the 3 years, you're going to perform within the 2 years? And have you really sorted out the issue of deficit in trust and confidence? And I see these particular actions is demonstrating that still there's a high level of deficit in trust and confidence among the principals. And really, we don't want to see any violent way of transfer of power. We need to see a peaceful transfer of power, but peaceful transfer of power will be transferred by demonstrating political maturity and committing ourselves to the principle of dialogue, and the dialogue should embrace consultation and consensus for us to implement the revitalized agreement for the best interest of the citizens of South Sudan. Because honestly, if you ask me, I'm somebody who wishes to see my current political leaders to disapprove Bashir's statement when he was handing over the independency by saying, give South Sudanese 10 years, they will mess up. Almost we confirm what Bashir said is correct, that we are messing, we're unable to govern ourselves. And that's the message Bashir have communicated to the international community. And all this international community are buying in that actually what Bashir said was correct. So some people are asking, why are we messing ourselves? And remember, this mess come after certain gains. The gains of the visit of the Pope, the withdrawal of the power of national security from arresting people, the meeting of the IDPs, people saying, oh, we are beginning a best pathway. Now we can see changes are coming. But unfortunately, this decision came in. And I don't know who are the advisors behind this decision. I wish the advisors could have taken time and really sit in a political science room and assess the consequences, how much you're discontented. Normally, don't act in an emotional way that you destroy the gains you have scored. So for me, still, my appeal goes back to His Excellency President and First Vice President to take a national responsibility to reach consensus on the 9th on Thursday, because say whatever consensus they have reached is a decision. Our role is to ensure that they don't reach to a unilateral decisions. Always that decision must be through consensus for the best interest of the country, because we need to see peace and stability in the country. So I hope I've answered my brother. If I didn't, and if I feel I've not answered him sufficiently or I've dodged his question because of the internet issue, I'm ready. I can be reached. You can share with him my contacts, is my WhatsApp. We can continue, or I can still also wait. If I answer the other two questions, he can come back, and if he feel I've not yet clarified some of his article, some of his concerns, I'm ready to clarify them. Otherwise, I give the opportunity to you guys.
Yeah. Thank you, Edmund. We are rightly informed that Attilo also has a follow-up question, of which we'll give him at least 1 minute to give his follow-up question. And then you will answer the comment section, one question or two, depending on what will the president display on the screen. And thereafter, we'll also mindful about time, because the president is always morning hours there, almost morning in Australia, and he has to take a nap before morning hours going to work. Thank you so much. I yield it back to Abraham Adit on the studio.
Benitito, go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Brother Edmund. You did well. You did answer my questions comprehensively, but I have a follow-up question. You will answer that later on, and we will allow other people to ask questions. But I just want to remind you, I'm still insisting on these provisions of so-called agreements. And if I can mention something that you did mention in your statement, the hybrid court, I don't remember who actually called for the hybrid court. Is it the SPLM-IO or IG, and who actually agreed? You see, because the hybrid court was introduced by the international community and IGAD and African unions to resolve the problem of South Sudan, whereby people that violated the human right should be held accountable. It was from the African unions, the world community, the IGAD imposed on us because the IO committed gross violations, and the IG as well. That's one. Secondly, thank you for mentioning Article 8.4 from the agreement. The same article, if you read carefully and fully, gave what you call as a consensus. And this is where I'm coming with the follow-up questions. If the parties to agreements, what I mean by parties, the SPLM-IG, SPLM-IO, the so-called the G10s, and all these who in the agreement come to the consensus, then they can decide. So now, My question is this: if the President Salva Kiir come to the agreements with the SOHA, the Senate of the Body, with the G10s, those of G10 Yandanes, and with the exception of the IO, then they can decide. That's what we call consensus. Can you agree on that or no? You see how complicated peace agreement is. These peace agreements wasn't meant to resolve the conflict in South Sudan. We all South Sudan, we are seeking for peace and stability in our country. But it was a plan B to change the regime in our country. And we know that as well. We know that, and you know that, Mr. Edmund. Riek Machar camp was used to change the regime in the Republic of South Sudan. You agree with me in that a lot of people know that there was a plan from the players, not from Africa, but what the so-called Troika, the Americans and the Norwegians and all this, they were having a plan to change the regime. So as a result, we fell into the trap of that intention, whereby we kill ourselves. This is the picture that is hiding. People never and will never discover that and will never see that. You see, that was the following question, and thank you so much for mentioning Article 8.4, because the same article gave the President Salva Kiir and Riek Machar and the other parties to the agreement to extend. It's the same article, 8.4. You can go and read it again. Thank you. I will stop here.
Okay, I hear my microphone back, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much. Before we move to Edmund, I think Tila was asking a follow-up question in regard to Article 8.4, which gave the parties to the agreement to extend. Is the same article that also gives President power to change anything that it deems fit in the government. So I will request Isaac to display the question on the board. Then you read that question and then you will answer the two. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I got two questions here. One from Mawid Chiang is asking you, Edmund, do you think there will be threatened to opposition politicians who are in Juba, or if they don't agree, there are any risks will be taken by IG? And I got another question from Unity State, Bentiu. James Ray Majok is watching live from Bentiu. He said, I have a question to Edmund. Please tell me what will be the importance of current roadmap that was being extended by warring parties to continue implementing others issues that are affecting implementation of peace agreement. These are the two questions. The third one is already answered. I will not display that again. You can just answer three questions at the same time, and we will wrap up from there. Thank you.
So, Majok, should I go ahead?
Yes, exactly. The chance is yours, Brother Edmund.
Thank you very much. With my colleague from Clubhouse, I wish if I can seek attention, Majok, if we can have a separate talk show on Chapter 5 of the Revitalized Agreement, which is a transitional justice and which have the element of the hybrid court, and how the hybrid court come to existence, because I think is a very genuine question, is a very critical question. And by the way, also hybrid court offer an option of either radicalizing the political leaders in really committing themselves to implement this agreement smoothly, because they feel that's one of instrument that is hunting them and is trying to play around with their lives as the leaders of this country. So I think my request, if you can have a talk show over that, or if you can have a show over that within the week. And I was recently engaged with the AU Peace and Security Council, and I was engaged with the legal advisor of the African Union over specific issues of the hybrid court. And we have seen Honorable Martin Elia Lombro say there's no possibility of having the hybrid court. And while the hybrid court is one of the benchmarks of Friends of South Sudan saying the law, justice can't go without accountability, and there will be no peace without justice. So the balance between peace first or justice later, peace first, that debate, I wish we could have a show of it so that I can give more information on the issue of Chapter 5 and how those mechanisms come to exist, and the negotiation, where are the concepts coming from? Because those concepts didn't come out of blue, and I've been following in the negotiation. So I wish, if my brother can agree with me, let's have a show on that so that we can explain more further and give more details. So this is on a throwback to Lex Media, to Lex Television, so if we can have that talk show within the week. That's one thing I'll say. But coming to Article 8, one of the things normally I like to explain, you can quote quite a number of hours in the revitalized agreement. Of course, remember there's this concept of Chapter 8, which says the agreement is supreme than the Constitution. And now the agreement is incorporated in the Constitution. So it means if you read any constitutional article, you read in line with the spirit of the agreement. And I still repeat myself, the spirit of the agreement is consultation, consensus, and then can be enforced. If consultation fail, if consensus fail, then you go for voting. There's this possible scenario. For example, if there's a disagreement between the SPLM and the SPLM-IO in terms of the ownership of the Ministry of Defense and Veteran Affairs, and if there's a crack within the SPLM-IO, there are some other SPLM-IO members who say, let's give in for the Ministry of Defense and Veteran Affairs to go to SPLM, and let's give the president prerogatives to appoint another minister. So it means now it's no longer a question of consensus between the SPLM-IO and the IG. SPLM-IO have to struggle in gaining consensus among themselves first to avoid the culture of defections. So that's one possible scenario that will be thrown. I'm quite sure they're facing it now. But if SPLM-IO say no, we need to reach consensus. So they have to reach consensus. In the position that the consensus is not reached, then you need to have the grantors coming in to play a role of negotiation, the concept of two-thirds majority. And remember, swapping is not something easy. Swapping, it means you will get back all the signatories to vote. So if two-thirds of the parties that are signatory to the agreement agree on the swapping, then that's a chance that SPLM-IO may lose the Ministry of Defense and Veteran Affairs. If the grantors come in, a third party come in and start using the concept of voting in the sense as an alternative to consensus building, which is in Article 8.4, as my brother say, it gives the president. So president have the power to reshuffle the government, but that reshuffle is based on the spirit of agreement in which president will ask each party, get for me your candidates. They'll get their candidates through consultations. Then they bring to the president can appoint. But if president is discontented with any minutes of any ministry, president will communicate back to the party. These particular minutes of yours, I don't agree with the role this particular party member is playing as an executive member. Like the case of the humanitarian minister is very clear as a live example that we can use it in terms of how president can use his power to ask one particular party to replace their member who we may have he's discontented, or if a party member is discontented with their member and they want president to change, that's the spirit. But I keep on saying I can provide more answers on this particular question. You can reach out to me. But what I'd like to say, whatever we're doing within the agreement, it should be within the spirit and the text of the agreement, which consultation, then consensus. Consensus fail, we go for voting. And in the voting, third majority. And voting, normally, a third party comes into it. That's what I like to say. But with regard to the element or the concern around the hybrid court or Chapter 5 of the Rivers Agreement, I will really ask for a separate talk show so that we can have therapy. Because there's a questions now. Should we abandon the hybrid court and go with the Commission for Truth, Healing, and Reconciliation, and then with the mechanism on compensation reparation? And then are they interlinked? If the hybrid court is not there, are there issues in the commission that may require justice for a mechanism like hybrid court? And then in terms of compensation reparation, will there be, I think,
Apologies to our viewers. Our guest has fallen off because of internet, I guess. And let's wait for a while. He might return. He's already here. All right. Thank you. Welcome back.
Yeah, that's the issue of the hybrid court. The hybrid court is very critical with the internet. So we hope to have a separate discussion on the issue of the Chapter 5 of the agreement. Coming to the other two questions, I don't think per now, I'm speaking with you, I'm in Juba, I'm speaking with you, I'm in contacts with the opposition members. I don't think per now opposition members have received sense of threat. Even the meeting of the 9th, I don't think is going to be a threat. Remember when there was a direct threat last March last year, the parties have to withdraw. So we hope that nobody in the IG should use the element of threatening, because by itself is worsening the matter, is deadening the matter worse. And I think what we are demanding is that let them talk and let them reach consensus, because we don't fly out of Juba because of swapping of ministries. Still, we have opportunity to use Juba as a venue where we can discuss among ourselves as Sudanese. And since it's within the roadmap is what we all agree as South Sudanese, that this is our own instrument. We don't blame anybody, whether any country, for bidding for it. We say we own it when it was launched. The leaders declared that. So I think there will be no possible threat. Of course, in the case of if it become harder, there's a likelihood of that some opposition may feel their security is under threat because things are not getting smooth. And that's why we're saying it is up.
Network Juba is really challenging.
Yeah.
Come bit worse.
So it's sorry, upon,
it's
yes,
upon his excellency. It's upon His Excellency the President and First Vice President to reach consensus. And people like us who are in Juba will try to bargain them to reach consensus. If they reach consensus on swapping, it's none of our business. Just what we need is to let them agree this is a pathway we need to adapt, and pathway that is not violent, is a non-violent pathway. The second question, the roadmap is nothing. The roadmap is just only an extension of a lifespan of the agreement. And of course, the agreement, it is an instrument for successful political transition from the current situation to peace. And the importance of the roadmap is that power will be transferred in an honorable and peaceful manner, for the question which came from Bentiu. So we want to see that all the parties respect the implementation of the roadmap. Of course, there's this debate that anything happened between the SPLM-IU and the SPLM-IG take a high attention than something that happened among other parties. Remember, other parties, their principal are also sacking their MPs, are dismissing their members, and their members are complaining, but doesn't have high attention like what happened between the SPLM-IU and the SPLM-IG. So that's, for me, it is the biggest issue that sometimes comes up, because the two are the giants, the two are having the military, and the two are the one running the top position, president, first vice president. That's why always any disagreement among them is a big public issue. But when there's a disagreement among other parties and dismissal of other parties' members, nobody talk about it. But still, those who are mounted to a violations, though we don't talk about them. So my statement is that the roadmap is one of the best tools that we can use to deliver the country from violence to peace. And some of the sections of the roadmap, yes, may be challenging, whether being in Chapter 4 with the financial and economic reforms or the hybrid court. And that's why I say, let us have a separate discussion over that so that we can have a thorough discussion on transitional justice, because we need to really repair the damaged social fabric. And we can't repair it if we don't forgive each other, if we don't reconcile, if we don't see accountability, if we don't see justice. We may not. Up to as we have seen Rwanda use gachacha, but still there's a demand of accountability and justice in Rwanda. But what is the best way of South Sudanese in delivering justice and accountability? For me, I really appeal for a show specifically for that. So this may be my last point. I wish I've answered questions. And if you ask me to make remarks, then I can make, because the internet is disturbing us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Edmund Yakani. And thanks to our colleague on Clubhouse, Tilo, and those who are actively listening on Clubhouse. Up to this juncture, I think we will come to an end of our show, because the internet is disturbing actually our guests. And we will have another show as you requested. Good enough, the president is here. And also Abraham Adit is listening there. The deputy president, Paul Makur, is listening too. The board of Lagos State Media will take into account and consideration. They will deliberate on it and give you feedback so that we can also have discussions on that topic, specifically topic 5. Thank you for that.
Can you guys give Dr. Mayuen? Can you guys give Dr. Mayuen 1 minute, please?
Yeah, if you allow me to just make a closing remark. My appeal to all South Sudanese, wherever you are, through this Lex Media.
Yes, Edmund. Hold on, Edmund. We are coming to you, Edmund. Yeah, we have received information that there is somebody also on Clubhouse, Dr. Marian. He want to make comments in regard to the interview that we have conducted, and I think we'll give him 1 minute. And also, we are sorry for that, Dr. Marian. You came late, and we have been here for 1 hour 40 minutes now. And one of us is in Australia, and it is also morning hours in Australia, and he has to sleep. So, and also internet is disturbing our guests in Juba. That's why we are timing you. Otherwise, you don't deserve to be timing or to be given time. You deserve to be given a humble time so that you can express your view, because we are discussing the affairs of our country. And through discussions, we always find amicable solution. Thank you so much, Dr. Nguyen. The chance is yours with a strictly 1 to 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks very much for the Lake Media for the good job that you guys are doing in enlightening our people what is happening back home. Also, my thanks to Brother Edward Yakani for always being, an eloquent speaker and something that I will not speak.
Let someone get him and then relate to me the questions.
There is a time.
I lost him.
Hello?
Hello, yeah, go ahead, Dr.
Go ahead. You can mute yourself, so go ahead. Yeah. Yes, so the issue of the swapping of the two ministries, the defense and interior, as well as, the notion that comes with it, always bring concern to us as South Sudanese, wherever they are, because this is how our problems start. And I hope the 2016 incident does not repeat itself, especially in the light of planned meeting between President Salva Kiir and his first Vice President, Dr. Yakani, which has now been postponed to Thursday. I was going to ask some specific questions in regard to the spirit of the agreement, but since we might have another discussion around this issue, I will not make any comment on that. My only appeal is for Dr. Yakani and the SPLM-IO team. We do know that, when CPA was implemented, there were problems with power sharing, especially the fact that the NIF took key ministers and, President Salva Kiir at that time said that positions did not take us back to war. And I think that decision has led to referendum, and now we have South Sudan. So I hope that our brothers in IO can learn from that kind of experience. Last but not the least, I hope that there is no rising tension in Juba, in particular, because we do know that when these things happen, our citizens are always apprehensive. With this, I will stop my remarks, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for the great work done and for all the people that have participated and those who are listening on the Clubhouse and also Facebook Live. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mayu. And also, Brother Yakani and the rest listening, let me 30 seconds to let you guys know, to let Dr. Mayu Akut was one of the, Edmund, I want to let you know, Dr. Mayu was the first doctor in 2013 crisis. He was one of the leading doctor for that crisis event. I just want to let you know. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Mawian. And thank you so much, Attilo and Abraham Adit, for the great work that you're doing on the other side of Clubhouse. And we really appreciate the technology and the expertise, the like of Abraham Adit and Isaac Ting, for always connecting us together on Clubhouse, YouTube, and on Facebook. And that is so wonderful. So we always come together to discuss and share ideas on the same note. We really appreciate your remark, Dr. Mawian. And thank you for that. It's very important always to acknowledge whatever little things that we are doing, all of us, for the betterment of our country. And we really appreciate Edmund Yakani for the work that he's doing in that country. Seeing he devoted his time, his energy, his knowledge into the affairs of South Sudan. Edmund Yakani, we will give you 2 minutes to give us your last remark in regard to the show, and your message to South Sudan is in line with actually discouraging misinformation and disinformation that always circulates and rapidly go wild like a wildfire. Thank you so much, Edmund Yakani. Yield it back to you.
Thank you very much. My closing remarks is just I'm appealing to South Sudanese wherever they are, in country, in the region, outside the country, in diaspora. Let's not take advantage of this situation for raising hostile propaganda and hate speech, and let's avoid personalizing these issues. Let's keep on making sure whatever we communicate is to encourage His Excellency President and His Excellency First Vice President to reach consensus for a good pathway of delivering our country from the situation we're in to peace. So my appeal is let's avoid hate speech and hostile propaganda, misinformation and disinformation, because already in our social media tracking, we have seen a sharp increase of hate speech and hostile propaganda. And even some people have gone as far as leveling decisions and putting information on tribal line, which may contribute to a wage of ethnic cleansing, which we don't want. So as South Sudanese, we can disagree politically in terms of ideology, but the unity and the stability of South Sudan should be a top priority above all our priorities and all our interests that we have. So I'd like to say, let God bless South Sudan. And I hope the next talk show, just let be immediately Thursday evening after we have the meeting. I'll be following the meeting closely. And of course, from now, we will be assembling information. But as my brother have said before, as we have Thursday, I'll go for a better internet so that I can answer some of the concerns within the spirit of the agreement, and then maybe the question of the hybrid cost. So I will appeal Thursday evening if the leadership of Lex Media can give us another show to respond to the outcome of the meetings and analyze the outcome of the meetings and answer some of this question and see the pathway from Friday, how South Sudan is going to look like. Otherwise, I pray for the best, and I ask that the power of the Holy Spirit impacted on His Excellency President and His Excellency First Vice President to have a remarkable decision for the best interest of the nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Edmund Yakani, for your remark. Before we close, I will yield it back to the President of Lagos State Media, Isaac Tiang, and before that, I will give appreciation. Then the President will close our show with his remark. Yeah, to our viewers, thank you so much. Over 500 South Sudanese who are watching us on Facebook. We really appreciate you, and we don't take it for granted as Lagos State Media. We believe it is our mandate and our collective obligation as South Sudanese to make sure we disseminate the right information to all South Sudanese and to keep talking through discussion, respectful discussion. That's where we'll get to understand the better view of other people's point and interest in our country. And through that, we will also be contributing in our own way. It does not need us to hold positions in our country for us to serve South Sudan. Do it at your own will on your own Facebook page, and South Sudan will remember you, that you are contributing toward the welfare of the country. To the clubhouse, South Sudanese, I don't know how can I appreciate you personally as my joke. I always like the discussion that you always carried out, despite the few elements that always come out of emotions to view out the sentiment against other tribes. Those are some of the things we can also accommodate and also appreciate them for expressing their feelings. You are doing great as Clubhouse South Sudan, especially those who are in diaspora. Keep doing that. You are gaining knowledge, and some of us are also learning from you. Some of you are veteran in that country. Some of you have fought in that country successfully before you exit the territory of South Sudan into the Western world. And through that knowledge, some of us who did not even go to the bush are learning through your discussion, and we really appreciate that. Joining Lagos State Media, and Lagos State Media is there for you. And through that, God will bless you all. God bless South Sudan. and God bless our continent, Africa. I yield it back to you, my boss, President Isaac Tieng, to give your remark and then close our show. And let's meet next time.
Thank you so much, Majok Makur Malak, and thank you, Edmund Yakani, for giving yourself a time always to come and attend the interviews with us, despite the internet challenges in Juba. And would like to also to thank the viewers all around the world, those who are watching in YouTube, Facebook, in the Clubhouse. Stay tuned with Lagos State Media. This is where we will be bringing to you all the news through this platform. It's yours. So we will catch up again on Thursday to bring to you the outcome of the meeting between two leaders on Thursday with our brother Edmund Yakani. So have a good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are tuning in. God bless you, all of you. God bless Republic of South Sudan. Thank you.
We Santo Man Kolnyang Mike Cholgrangawan Yubit Luping Yarul Pandiri Shet Maniel Anaketon Niel Jilo Wenetona Dol. Adenge kick kega buka gade bobaye anyalinya dia kuwi ketingrin
Jemanalie wena jangaro ngajedu kega parandi madina manja kubul makur kega bolegen kuai tatyang wagarde kegela Emmanuel wena bani
go yor adenge kick kega buka gade bobaye anyalinya dia kuwi ketingrin
Jemanalie wena jangaro ngajedu kega parandi madina manja kubul makur kega bolegen kuai tatyang wagarde kegela Emmanuel wena bani
go yor adenge kick kega buka gade bobaye